We turn our attention now once again to the Biden family syndicate. Now, for 2 years, we have been, actually longer than that, we have been raising concerns about Joe Biden's family's sketchy business partners, including zero experience Hunter Biden and his association with the nephew of a notorious Boston gangster, in a story totally ignored by the media mob. Remember Whitey Bulger? Well, his nephew played a key role in Hunter's Chinese ventures. Here with more, Fox News contributor Miranda Devine, along with former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury Monica Crowley. Miranda, you wrote The Laptop from Hell. You've seen The Laptop from Hell. You got a copy of The Laptop from Hell. My lawyer would not allow me to take it. That's an interesting story in and of itself. But more importantly, I want to go into this connection, and more importantly than that, how it all ties back to Joe Biden and how he's been proven to have lied when he said he'd never talked to his son about his foreign business dealings.
Well, look, Sean, I think it's pretty clear that Joe Biden did have a lot to do with Hunter Biden's overseas business partners. He met many of them. He met them from all sorts of countries, ranging from China to Russia to Ukraine and Kazakhstan and Mexico. And he met one of his business partners in Beijing when he flew Hunter into China on Air Force Two with him when he was going to have some high-level meetings with President Xi Jinping and the CCP. So it just does not pass the sniff test. It's kind of absurd that the White House is still trying to run that line that Joe Biden knew nothing about his son Hunter's overseas business dealings. He knew exactly what was, well, maybe he didn't know the details, but he knew what Hunter was up to, and he was doing it in his name.
We have pictures, Monica Crowley, of Joe Biden with foreign business partners from Mexico and foreign business partners from Kazakhstan. But and the lecture that he gave his Mexican business partner, which was, oh, I've brought you to the White House all these times. I brought you to meet my father all these times. You haven't given me anything yet. So clearly there was a quid pro quo expectation. Here's my question, though. With all the money that this family syndicate got from China and in the deals they got from China and the money they got from a Russian oligarch, former First Lady of Moscow, millions of dollars, the money they got from a Kazakhstan oligarch, the millions that Hunter got from Ukraine with Burisma, and Joe leverages $1 billion taxpayer dollars to fire the prosecutor investigating his son being paid millions with no experience. If the name was Trump and it was Donald Trump Jr., or Eric Trump, or Ivanka Trump, or Barron Trump, or Tiffany Trump, don't you think the media would handle this a lot differently?
I think that question answers itself, Sean. I think the answer is very obvious that, of course, if this were any member of the Trump family, we'd be on the 15th impeachment of Donald Trump ex post facto. Look, the double standard is so clear. We've got deep, deep corruption with this family that's gone on for decades. Influence peddling is the Biden family business. We've got long paper trails, Sean, of the corruption of not just Hunter, but Joe. I mean, this is a Joe Biden story. And we know the famous 10% for the big guy. But now we've also got emails and texts indicating that Joe Biden had Hunter, the bag man for the Biden family, actually turning over 50% of their ill-gotten gains.
Okay. Shouldn't there be an investigation? Is Joe Biden compromised by China and Russia and Ukraine and Kazakhstan? Because that's really the question here. It would appear, according to these emails, he not only knew, but he profited from these deals. That would mean that we potentially have a president that is completely compromised. Where's that investigation?
I think there is an investigation going on in Delaware into Hunter Biden and various aspects of his foreign business dealings. And I think that from the questions that we understand have been asked of some of the witnesses, such as who is the big guy, it seems that they are starting to look at Joe Biden because Joe Biden is the big guy, as Tony Bobulinski told us.
Monica Crowley, thank you. Miranda, always great to see you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.